afternoon, or I guess it's actually good noon. For those of you in Central European time, um, I I recognize a few names here. Hello, Jeanette. Hello, Tanya and Silke and Christiane. Welcome to Digital Leaders. We're going to give some more time for folks to join, and then we're going to get started maybe at a couple minutes after the hour.
I'm gonna send a Zoom reminder as well. So
Fantastic. We are going to try to make this as interactive as possible. So there will be a point where we're going to ask you to introduce yourself. And if you have an ability to turn your camera on, it would be helpful as we build the community and we try to make this more of a discussion group than a one-way Q&A. So if you are in a possibility to do that, I'm just giving you a heads up that that's going to be our approach for this month's session. So, hey, Silke, is it Silke or Silk? How do I pronounce that?
Silke, that's correct.
Silke.
Silke.
Where are you in the world, Silke?
Germany, Hanover.
In Hanover. Oh, fantastic, fantastic. Were you in the December event in Dusseldorf last? No.
No.
No. Are you a member of the B2B online community?
I joined the first time. A colleague forwarded me the email. So
well, welcome. It's always nice to have first timers. We are going to wait a few more minutes. We had about 36 registrations, and I know it's lunchtime, so people are going to have maybe running to get their lunch before joining, so maybe we'll have some latecomers. Tanya, where are you calling in from?
From Frankfurt, Germany.
Ah, Frankfurt. Okay, nice. And were you at the December events?
I sure was. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us today. And we'll give it a few more minutes. Silke, what organization do you work at?
I'm with Continental Tires.
Ah, fantastic, fantastic. What kind of role do you have it?
I'm responsible for e-commerce, B2B, so B2B, that fits,
Nice.
and fleet systems, fleet solutions.
Oh, nice. Fantastic. So we'll see. I'm gonna wait for Ava to give me some sort of indication.
So I think we can start, if you want, slowly, and then I'm just gonna send an email to all the registrations. So we might get some late comers maybe. But it's up to you if you just want to start slowly to get people to introduce themselves.
Okay. Well, we can do that because it looks like we'll maybe have a smaller group than last month. But let's maybe kick it off. Okay, so I am David Shell. So I'm leading this Digital Leaders Circle for the B2B online community. You know, for today, we can make this really intimate and answer and have a very good Q&A session with our guest speaker today, which is Brian Coleman. Brian, say hello.
Hello, nice to meet everybody.
And I'll let Brian, you introduce yourself in a little bit, and just make it, maybe just have an open forum and dialogue with questions around what people are thinking about from today's session. So with that, why don't we kick this off with kind of, if we could go around and say what's your name and your role at the organization that you work with, and if you could put a number on how AI ready is your organization, I think that would be a good sort of speaker starter for us. And any expectations or questions you might have for Brian as we get going. So Silke, since I've been starting with you and you're brave enough to actually turn on your video, we're very appreciative of that. Would you start again and answer these questions?
Okay, yeah. My name, I'm Silke. I'm, as I said, responsible for e-commerce, B2B and fleet solutions for Continental Tires in the EMEA region. How AI ready is the organization? It depends in our organization where you look. I would say for our part in marketing and sales, probably 4, 5.
Okay, cool. And is there any expectation you have for today, for the next hour?
Yeah, any expectations? For me, I would like to get to know more, like on looking at B2B e-commerce, B2B sales. What are the key use cases you see for AI, and which are the most, let's say, the ones that are most successful to implement, and what would be the prerequisites to implement them successfully?
I'm so glad you said that, because in our prep session, we've been talking specifically around what I thought the audience would really want to hear. And that was in particular just exactly where we're going. So I know you will be satisfied with that. Let's pick on someone else. Jeanette Liendo, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We can.
Great. I'm having some Zoom video issues, so let me know if I trip up. My name is Jeanette. I am head of corporate marketing at Siemens Healthineers. I would say it depends on what part of my organization we're talking about. There are certain parts where I think we're very AI ready in terms of doing things in-house for campaigns. And setting kind of the thought leadership agenda in the marketplace for the sector. However, there's still a lot of things to discover in terms of what kind of right brain creative roles or left brain data roles we need for the future. So we're going through that journey, and super interested to hear from you and Brian. My expectation is that you will be both very interesting.
Oh, wow.
No pressure.
Yeah, I'm going to, makes me a bit nervous to set expectations so high. Okay, so thank you, Jeanette. Ralph, would you mind introducing yourself? Can you hear me? Are you there, Ralph? Ralph? Okay, maybe we'll take a pass. For those just joining, we're doing a little bit of introductions here. Christiane,
hello, everyone.
Hello, Christiane. Welcome.
Thanks. My name is Christiane. I'm based in Brazil. For me, it's a little late. It's 7 now. Nice to meet you. I work at Continental as Silke. I am new in the position. I am the leader for B2B e-commerce in Americas, and my expectation is learn more about the initiatives, use cases to apply here in our company.
Well, nice. Do you know Silke?
Not yet,
Oh,
because
wow.
yeah, it's my first time speaking with her.
Well, nice to have you both, and nice to be able to introduce you to your colleagues, and fantastic. How did you hear about us and at all?
Same thing as Silke. I received an email inviting me for the meeting, and
Okay.
I joined you.
Well, welcome. We love to have colleagues from Brazil. I think last month, Ava, we had Singapore and India also participating in the session. So we like all interested parties. So thanks,
Yeah.
Christian, for joining us. Tanya, I think you're next. There you are. Oh, you're on mute.
Yes. I have to say it at least once, right? Yes, good afternoon. My name is Tanya. I'm based a little bit outside of Frankfurt. I work for a chemical company called Rue. My role is responsible for digitalization for one of our key business units. So mainly focusing on automation, e-commerce, customer service automation. How ready are we for AI? Well, that's a good question. We're starting obviously with some of the main use cases already, looking at automatization, particularly in the areas of service. And in production, I'd say we're already, probably with a 4 or 5, but for the entire organization, I'd probably rate us a little bit lower, like around a 2 or 3. With regard to expectations today, what would be really great to hear a little bit more about is the area of pricing in the area of e-commerce when we're looking at B2B. That would be really helpful. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining. I'm happy you're not working at Continental Tires. Just we like a little diversification here. But that's great. Freak, if I pronounce your name right?
Well, actually, it's Freek.
Freck. Okay.
It always leads to funny discussions. My first name. So I'm working at NXP Semiconductors, based in Eindhoven, and I'm in the corporate global marketing and communications department, where I'm responsible for operations and corporate projects. Our AI readiness, I would say, is we're setting the first steps. So it's on the low side of the scale, but definitely, it gets increasing attention within the larger company, but definitely also within our department. My expectations are, it's of course a learning journey for all of us. So it starts, of course, with hearing perspectives and insights from others, and with that, I hope to develop a kind of vision for myself and for our department. So that's it from my side.
Fantastic. I haven't confirmed 100%, but our next month's speaker, Freck, I don't know, do you know Matthias Lang?
Yeah.
So he has graciously also offered to be part of our community. So I'm potentially working with him to have him as next month's speaker. So
Interesting.
Yeah. So interesting, and it'd be a combining corporate strategy with marketing session talking about transformation. So perhaps, yeah, you might be interested in joining again next month.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining today. Ralph, are you there now? Oh, there you are.
Yeah, now you should able to hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. So just shortly, so Ralph, I'm a sales director within Bosch and from the Stuttgart area. And scaling, that is probably a very subjective answer. So I would see us between 5 and 6, maybe, don't know. And expectations, not so much. I wanted to understand a little bit how it's working here in such a session. And unfortunately, I have to leave at 12:30, but I just wanted to, get to know a bit. Thanks.
Sure. Well, again, you'll be getting a link to the full content after the fact. So you might not be listening it to live, but you can always come back and check us out. With that, maybe looking at the time, and I know, Brian, I'm going to introduce you in a bit. I'm going to get going with just a little bit of overview of why we're here today, and some of you have not been to the face-to-face event we have every year in December. But the reason that we started this online webinar series is because we were listening to the feedback from that session, and that a lot of people wanted to have conversations and thought leadership and ways to connect beyond that once a time year. And so we came away and tried to find a way in which we could create an ongoing session where we would stimulate and bring guest speakers, expert opinions to the community to make some connections. So with that, it's not too early to start thinking about when your December plans are coming around. I know December seems far away, but you do get nice discounts if you're a manufacturer and distributor and you want to participate in the B2B online events, a 2-day event. This year it's going to be back in Berlin on December 3rd and 4th, and we would appreciate any of you considering going and being part of our face-to-face community as well. That being said, Digital Leaders Circle, our aim is to really build this vibrant and interactive community of thought leaders across Europe, but maybe we should expand that to include Brazil, India, and Singapore, so we can bring our friends and families from around the world together to have these sorts of conversations to address a wide variety of marketing topics. I would say that a big part of our focus is how AI is changing marketing and the discipline of marketing. And so a big part of our guest speaker series will be AI experts like Brian and others who can help bring their thought leadership, their expertise to us. We want to develop our membership and our community and allow you guys to connect to other companies. Actually, here we have 2 members of the same company connecting together. So that's quite nice that we're able to connect to colleagues that don't know each other in the same company and have fun for an hour to discuss an important topic. And I know maybe many people registered and knew they weren't able to attend a live session, so many people will focus on the online version that if you missed last month's session and you're interested in large language models and how that's impacting SEO, you can see and hear the full webcast. I think, Ava, you just put it into the chats. You can see it here in terms of kind of what did we discuss last month, and we're going to have an ongoing series of webinars to put into that webinar. One slide that summarizes the key actions for marketers in a world of LLMs and agents was this one takeaway slide in terms of the 6 key actions that we discussed with our colleague at Rockwell Automation the things that we need to be doing more of in terms of measurement and monitoring. And now there are new tools out there that allow you to measure and monitor these large language models and track to understand how well your content is showing up. And as more and more consumers go there to find answers versus going to Google to do their search, that we need to be there and we need to monitor that as a big part of our what I would move from an SEO practice to a GEO, generative AI practice, that's helping build those practices. If you're interested in learning all about the things that you need to do to improve content optimization, data integration, think about partnerships and business practices, I would encourage you to listen to the really interesting webinar that we had last month and get some feedback on that topic. You know, connected to that, of course, and what I presented in terms of a high-level view of some market research that was done by the State of Marketing 2025 HubSpot review, was the majority of marketers are still unsure how to work with AI. That's basically the headline, where 92% have already felt that AI has impacted their role. 54% feel overwhelmed by the prospect of implementing AI in their marketing strategy and their marketing tactics, right? So a very recent survey that's impacting the marketers' lives and the world that we live in. And that's a big part of why we're trying, and we brought Brian in to help us think about how can marketers be more sure and feel ready to take on the challenge of AI in their organization, which is the essence of our talk today. So with that, I'd like to kind of have you, Brian, I know you've been very patient, to give perhaps an overview. You've had a remarkable career across many tech companies, including AWS. But what would be nice is you can give just an overview to this audience and talk about some of the pivotal moments that impacted you most in your career.
Yeah, with pleasure. First of all, thank you, David, for inviting me, and thanks everybody for joining. I'm very happy to be here. So I'll try to do this really quickly because I could spend the next 40 minutes just talking about this.
We would love that. I don't think so. For the use case.
But I'll try to do it as quick and succinctly as possible. So indeed, I've had an unusual career path, perhaps. I started as a journalist back in the 90s, and at the end of the 90s made a covering business, by the way, for the Wall Street Journal, made a transition into the business world and joined Boston Consulting in Germany, where I wound up after several years specialized in automotive. Went from there to Toyota, worked at Toyota Europe's headquarters in a number of roles. But the important one for this context is that the last job I had there, the last role, was as head of marketing strategy for Europe. So working across all of the Toyota product lines with all of the different European markets, developing marketing strategies. And so that was then the launch pad, if you will, into the world of technology, where I joined Google and spent a number of years, always again focused with automotive companies, really helping them understand and leverage digital tools and digital marketing outlets for the automotive industry. So that would be search and display and YouTube and everything else, helping them understand how to dive deep in their data and what they could do to get the most out of it. And basically, since then, I've spent the last 15 years of my career in tech, always related to automotive and with a strong bias towards sales and marketing. I joined AWS a little over 3 years ago, and I do the same thing, but from the AWS perspective. So I work with automotive companies and their sales and marketing organizations, trying to help them leverage cloud technologies across their sales and marketing organizations. And of course, over the last couple of years, that's meant a lot of work on Gen AI, which is the hot topic, not the only topic, but the one that gets the most attention. And so I've been working with my customers and clients on a variety of different projects in the Gen AI space, some of them very straightforward, some of them a little bit more complex. And I guess that's what I'm here to talk about.
Fantastic. I'm just curious, in terms of your focus always on the automobile industry, is there something in your childhood or a connection to cars that kind of created this path in your career?
Yes, but it's more coincidental than factual. Both of my grandparents' fathers worked in the automotive industry. I have an uncle in the automotive industry. My father is not, but he is an auto nut as well. So I kind of grew up around cars, but I never thought I was going to wind up in this space. It was simply how things turned out.
Fantastic, fantastic. And we have Continental tires here, so
Yep.
obviously we have a nice
They're a good AWS customer, so I'm very happy to see the Continental people here.
So good, smiling very nicely. So that's great. Well, why don't we kind of get into kind of the main topic at hand here, and we heard from the audience.
Yeah.
No, maybe some departments are at a 6. The highest number I think was a 6, but most people are like around the 3, 4 side of things.
Sure.
So, AI is definitely transforming how businesses operate, but companies are not ready. So, in your mind, if you had to kind of define, what does it mean to be AI ready, an AI ready organization? What are those top themes that you would look to?
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, and frankly, I think most organizations would have low numbers on your 1 to 10 scale. It's not surprising. Gen AI, although AI in some various forms has been around for a little while. I mean, it's really been, let's be honest, the last 2 to 3 years that it's kind of taken off and reached some level of maturity. But the truth is, it's still very early days. So I would be surprised if there are too many organizations that are at an 8 or a 9 or a 10. That'd be very, very few. And even AWS is probably not at a 10. I think we've got all the tools, but even in our own internal operations, it's the old story sometimes of the cobbler's children have no shoes. I won't say we're that bad. We have plenty of tools internally, but it's there's always room for improvement. What does it mean to be AI ready? There's a kind of checklist that I would go through that covers a number of different things. The starting point has to be and is always data, because AI isn't going to deliver much if you don't have the data to give it to work with. So you really need to start thinking about the data you've got. You need to establish some robust data governance policies and practices. You need to ensure that the data is organized, it's labeled, and it's accessible. And that's a big one. What I see in my customers' organizations, and this can be true, I'm sure, in small companies, mid-sized companies, and in my own company, often the data is very siloed, not easily accessible. AI is not going to work if it doesn't have the raw material to work with, and that's the data. So that's the place to start. The second one, of course, is the skills and the training. And again, this is not a surprise. That's not in place in many places because, this is such a new field, but you really do need to take the time and invest in upskilling the people to understand AI and how it works. And a lot of that is just going to be, giving them the freedom to experiment because everybody is learning. Even those of us at AWS, we're always learning. So, that means creating training programs, internal playgrounds to experiment with, what have you. But you really need to get people familiar with it and to understand what they can do. I have to say this as somebody from AWS, you've got to have your technology foundations in place, right? So, where necessary, you need to make sure that you've got the appropriate computing infrastructure, or through somebody like AWS or another cloud service provider that you're able to scale, because you're going to be managing a lot of information, a lot of data, a lot of different inputs. And so you need to, you can't be doing it all off of the laptop, right? It's going to have to you're going to have that infrastructure in place or outsource to the cloud. Two other points. I think you need to have a governance framework in place. I think this is really important. I'm a big evangelist for the idea of not putting AI in an AI team and leaving them to do it all. I think this is something that everyone in the organization needs to be playing around with and experimenting with. You can't just leave it to a few people because AI can be applied in every part of your organization, whether that's marketing, sales, manufacturing, HR, finance, whatever. It can all benefit. So you really need to let everybody have a shot at it, but at the same time, you need to have some governance in place. So you need to have some policies and guidelines. You need to have some ethical principles that are in place. You need to have some risk management, data security, and so on. You don't want to have your sensitive data or your customer's sensitive data floating around and being consumed by these Gen AI models that might then share it with somebody else later down the road. And finally, but last but not least, is there needs to be a kind of alignment with your business objectives, right? AI can be a lot of fun, but if you're not putting it to use in a way that aligns with your business goals, then you're just wasting money and time. And so you need to think carefully and evaluate the different use cases. Will this benefit us? How will it benefit us? Or is it just a nice shiny thing? You don't want the nice shiny thing. You want something that will have a real business impact. And I think that's very, very important that when you start considering the different applications in your business, that you're making sure that it lines up with whatever your business goals are.
Wow, what a good opening framework. AI readiness is data, skills, technology foundation, governance, and alignment to business objectives, right? So as a starting point, I really like how you kind of succinctly kind of created a few pillars that we all need to have. I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen so we can thank you for that note. I knew that was going to happen. So those 5 pillars are super clear and succinct, and I like that. And I was at a conference yesterday in Paris. It was kind of a customer experience conference, but they again also started with the number one thing that we all need, and most companies haven't figured out how to address, is the data.
Yep.
Right? Now, in this group of marketers, I think there's lots of different types of data in an organization, but I think where I have what's close to my heart in particular is how do you organize customer data, and what's the best system, tool, or structure that allows all of us to use customer data as marketing and sales professionals to be able to then have the right sort of use cases to drive that. And that, I don't know, Brian, if you have any sort of hints or tips, or what do you see are best practices in terms of being with the data issue?
Yeah, I don't think I can give you that one simple answer, because data is so specific to the company and the use case and how you're structured and what you're selling, what products or services you're selling. So it's and how you're organized by region, by product line, by matrix, whatever. So it's I don't think there's a one size fits all answer to that question. What I will say though is what I was hinting at before, that you do need to have your data structured, you need to have it labeled, you need to have it accessible. The biggest challenge we see, that I see with my customers, is that it's all siloed, it's not compatible, it's not easily accessible, and when you have that situation, you're starting at a disadvantage, and it's going to be very difficult to work with. Now, one of the nice things about AI is that it can take lots of different inputs in lots of different formats. And you can tap into multiple databases simultaneously. So it will allow you to overcome some traditional barriers when you're trying to analyze, let's say, the effectiveness of marketing campaigns, and you're getting data from various places. Gen AI can do an amazing job of pulling that all together. But again, it needs to be, even if it's coming from different sources, it needs to be available, and it needs to be labeled, and it needs to be, maybe it doesn't always need to be labeled, but it helps if it's labeled. But I don't think there's a one size fits all answer.
Yeah, no, that's clear. At least in the marketing context, from personal experience, and actually the customer that was speaking yesterday was talking about the development or use of a customer data platform,
Yep.
a CDP. I those that have known me and heard me speak at the last couple events know that I'm a big believer that a customer data platform or a CDP from a customer marketing perspective is one of the new tools that are on the market that will allow us to do exactly what you're doing, is collect, structure, and get access to customer data to allow us to do the insight identification, the audience selection, as well as the engagement with customers in a way that allows AI to be infused in all aspects of the marketing campaign.
Yeah, I kind of take a CDP for granted, which I shouldn't, but you're absolutely right. I would agree.
Right. And the world, right, if you've been in marketing as long as you and I have been, like it started, right, from the basis of like first like having a CRM system where we were kind of throwing all our data in and realizing that it's not working because it's a Salesforce automation tool. Then we were creating data lakes and data warehouses and all these other things. And that was
Data
hard
clean
for them.
rooms.
What was that?
Data clean rooms.
Data clean rooms to kind of do. Then we're relying on IT to get our work done. And so
Yeah.
eventually, this notion of customer data platforms came online, and now there's a ton of them. Now you see the industry kind of going through an interesting phase of mergers, trying to understand what is the best CDP for a particular B2B organization, and this is one of the topics that we talked about.
And that's actually something I'm working with my client on, one of my largest client, I should say, who's reevaluating their CDP globally, and I'm expecting that process to take a year, just to put that into perspective.
Wow. Is there anyone else? I'm just going to open up the floor in terms of like using a CDP to help them at least drive the next stage of their marketing maturity. Is this a question or a comment or an initiative that is happening in your organizations? Kind of pause and see if there's anyone. Jeanette.
Yes, we're using Adobe CDP.
Okay.
And yes, and Brian, a lot of what you're saying sounds extraordinarily familiar. It's absolutely next level, but it does also put a huge strain on those silos to work together, not only from a data perspective, which is massive, but also from a process perspective.
Yep.
But it's absolutely worth it because it's really the only way to be customer centric at the end of the day.
Yep.
But it ain't easy.
No, it's not.
And Jeanette, if I may ask, where are you on your using Adobe? Where are you in this path? Are you a mature user? Are you starting it off? Can you talk a little bit about where you are in this path?
Well, we started about a year and a half ago, and we're trying to go country by country. And so in the first country we rolled out, we're going into the second wave of campaigns. But for the rest of the markets that we've identified as primary markets, so much of it, to your and Brian's point, is setting up the data, structuring the data, unifying the data, consenting the data. Not that we don't have consented data, but it's not at the same level.
Yeah.
And
not a surprise. I've seen the biggest challenges actually in CDPs in in those kind of multinational organizations. Like, I won't say it's easy to set one up in, say, the United States. It's a big market. But I've seen people have more success if it's in one. And once you start trying to apply across Europe, it gets really messy really fast.
Yeah, and then the local setup, to your point, is also very important because you've got to ready that part of it as well, like all of the different sequence journey assets, really connecting awareness to discovery, to demand gen, to post sales. So that's been an interesting journey, but also some countries are just culturally more excited by the end-to-end view too, and so that's been really great to see some countries like really taking the initiative, even if they have a tiny bit of data, they're connecting all the dots internally. So that gives us some energy back to continue investing in the effort.
Right.
Fantastic. In my mind, when I was working at Rockwell and I had implemented the Dun & Bradstreet CDP, at one of these are some of the same issues that we face in terms of not just having kind of good quality data, but then how do you use, so once you have this asset, how do you change your marketing and sales practices on top of that in terms of really using kind of real-time, intent data, AI models to actually do that? And the training of the people and the process hindered our ability to truly get the ROI that we were looking for while I was at Rockwell. So it's one of those things that I think your AI ready pillars that you were just talking about, Brian, also applies to someone who's just trying to implement really like a basic system, like a CDP, because you need the data, you need the skills, you need the governance processes to be aligned around how you implement just change in an organization. So I'm going to look to you, Silke, at Continental. How do you manage customer data? Is it something that you've figured out, or are you also in siloed?
So at the moment, we don't have a CDP. We have discussed it heavily last year, and we'll continue to discuss it. And so I would have already, my first question, Brian, would be, you said once you want to apply it across Europe, it gets messy. And I mean, I'm EMEA, I would definitely need to apply it across EMEA, but we work with our global marketing team because in the end, we want it globally, because we don't want, actually, we want to have one CDP in the end and not several. This would be my first question. And the second, also back to you, David, because of course, one of the questions we get is, what's the ROI? What's that? What do you do with it? So that is one of the questions we also need to answer to ensure we would get the funds to do it.
Yeah, and it goes back again, and it always goes back to, okay, what are the use cases that are going to drive your business objectives and drive your overall revenue growth from this, right? Because the presentation that I saw yesterday was super interesting. They had very specific use cases around training people, around taking costs out and adding revenue and automating certain business processes and practices. It's a hard thing to do. I spent a lot of time trying to build a 5-year business case to get the investment in our CDP at Rockwell. There was a quantitative business case aspect to it, but the bigger piece was the vision that's created around why it's needed and why it impacts the entire organization beyond just marketing, right? So if
it becomes an enabler, right? You need to say, it's what you're not able to do without it.
Exactly. And as everyone now wants to use AI, and we have no way of, connecting the dots, this is a way of preparing you to get to that AI readiness state. So if data is the first step that anyone needs to take to organize, get access to data, then before they should be experimenting big time with AI, maybe they need to kind of get their act together with their data governance and think about getting a CDP up and running. Silke, I'm assuming that it's the price tag that's stopping people from moving forward quickly on the CDP, or is it different internal other barriers?
It's already, I mean, the first hurdle was already to get a resource who could look into it, that we managed. So first hurdle gone. So now we have at least a resource who can really concentrate and looking into that topic.
Okay.
That was, I would say, the first hurdle, because we also agreed we cannot do it as a hobby. Yeah,
That's good.
I think that is, and now we are, yeah, as you said, we have collected use cases, try to put value to it, and then really see what then the price tag is for the CDP and how we could make it work globally, and also to ensure that I think this is where it becomes what we also need to ensure, that we don't just build it and then it's not used. So we also need to ensure that we have the capabilities in the markets to really use it afterwards. So
yes, and not to underestimate the fact that there are 150 different types of CDPs in the marketplace, and selecting the CDP that's right for your organization is not a simple thing to do. I'm actually looking at the time and realizing we have only 15 minutes left, and we have to get to the use cases for AI at AWS. We could spend a lot of time talking about CDPs and data quality, all that kind of stuff, but what the main focus is today, I want to get to, and in my mind, Brian, we had been talking about 5 use cases for AI mature organizations. So can you share with this audience what those 5 use cases are?
Yeah, I mean, with pleasure. I'll try to do so quickly, and then we can talk about whichever one is, or ones are of most interest. I mean, there's a lot more than 5, but in my work with my clients, I could put them into sort of 5 different buckets. The first is kind of the low-hanging fruit, and it's the one that everybody talks about, and it's really chatbots. But those can go in a lot of different ways. So I'd have to sit back and try to count how many different chatbot applications I've worked with customers on at this point. But we see it in a lot of different ways. It can be customer facing on a website or something like that, and you can basically train the model with all of your product information and your sales manuals and whatever other material you've got, so that the chatbot can ask smart questions to the customer to help guide them through a potential purchasing process, what they might be interested in, what might not be, upselling and cross-selling, and it can work very effectively. But it doesn't even need to be customer facing, so you can have that tool available to your business development agents or your sales and marketing people, whomever, so that they themselves can find their way around. I'll give you a kind of example. You imagine a car manufacturer, the number of spare parts that they've got is ridiculous, and they're required to keep those in stock for 10 years after the stop of production. So they've got spare thousands and thousands of spare parts for vehicles that they don't even sell anymore. And so when somebody from a repair garage or whatever calls up and they're trying to find out what to get and so on, it could take a lot of time sifting through a lot of different databases. So putting all of that information and pointing it an AI model at it can really help the agent cut down on their time. So you can use the chatbots in a lot of different ways. It's the easiest to implement. It's relatively low-hanging fruit, and it's a pretty obvious ROI, because it's either dealing directly with the customer, or you can have another one that we've done recently. A big manufacturer has a bunch of recall campaigns, and rather than having sales agents sitting there answering the phone trying to tell the customer what to do when their vehicle is subject to a recall, the chatbot can guide them through that, and it's much cheaper than employing whole call center. So that's pretty straightforward, and I think we all know that one. Another one that I would say is pretty obvious and is getting better and better each month is content creation. When I look at our own models, Amazon makes its own Gen AI models, of course, which is the Nova family, and I'm not, going to sit here and tell you how great they are compared to all the others, but the ability to create images and video that are really, advertising quality is remarkable. You can take a sample image and ask to change the background or do the typical kind of Photoshop stuff or change the color palette or, turn it from one type of image, say a realistic photo, into maybe an animation type thing and all that kind of stuff, and do that very quickly is very, very impressive. And we see a lot of advertising agencies, stock photography agencies have just jumped on that and are using it very widely, especially if you need to create campaigns for a wide variety of different formats and digital tops. You want to put something on social media, you want to put something on a display or whatever. Amazon Ads itself does that a lot. So that's another obvious one, but worth saying. Another one, which is not so obvious that I know, David, you and I spoke about, is customer personas. And this is something that we've done that I just really find fascinating. So those of you who, I guess it's all of you who work in marketing will know that marketing agencies and companies spend a lot of time and a huge amount of investment in developing, personas for their various customer types and styles. This is a huge process. I did it when I was at Toyota. It took us forever and it cost us a fortune to develop the different customer personas. It's a lot of research. You're doing surveys, you're doing focus groups, you've got researchers spending entire days with customers, videotaping them as they go to the grocery store and drive in their car or whatever. And then you take all of that information and it takes months to sift through it and try to figure out what are the personas. Well, we did an experiment where we took all of that research, which AI can't really do for you, but you can take all of that data, the videos, the customer surveys, the focus group transcripts, and all of that. And we fed it into a Gen AI model, and we asked it to develop customer personas based on this research. Now, I have to stress, this had already been done by the marketing agency, but we wanted to see how long it would take and what would the model spit out. And what was remarkable was that in a couple of minutes, the model went through thousands of hours of video and transcripts and so on, and came out with almost exactly the same personas that the marketing agency had spent several months analyzing to come out with, right? Wasn't completely lined up, but I would say it was about 80% alignment. And this was on the first try.
Right. The agency still there, or
the agency is still there? Absolutely, okay. The agency is still there. I'm not worried about the agency. They'll survive. They may change. They will change. But the point is, with Gen AI, you often have to do a lot of iterations to find something. If you've played around with ChatGPT or anything, you ask it a question, you go, no, that's not what I meant, and but literally on the first try, with a not very detailed prompt, the model came back in a couple of minutes with 5 different personas that were almost exactly in line with what, a very sophisticated and experienced team of marketers spent several months doing. And that was before iterations and stuff. So that was fascinating, because then what happens, that's the first step. But the second step is then, all right, now you've got these personas and you've got all of that data sitting there at the model's disposal. And your marketing teams and your product development teams and marketeers can start to ask the model questions about, I don't know, what type of messaging should we have to reach this particular persona? What, I'm dealing with car companies. What product features would they care more about? Would they want a bigger screen or more boot space or whatever? I mean, you can really start to play around with it, and the model will go back and sift through all of these, countless, interviews and surveys and come back with an answer. And that really can, you can ask your questions like, I want to make a TV ad. What sort of music would resonate best with this persona? So you can really use it in a very productive way. That's one of the most fun things that I've gotten to work on, and I think it's really powerful. There are some others. I'll just throw two more out there, and then I'll stop and let people ask questions because I know we're running out of time. It's really great for sentiment analysis, virtually real-time sentiment analysis. So, whether you're talking with customers and transcribing and doing real-time analysis that way, which you can do, or whether you're, sifting through the internet to develop, a customer sentiment analysis or competitive intelligence, for example. How is our product or service perceived compared to the others, the strengths and weaknesses? That can be really effective as well, and we've seen that. And then finally, attribution. All right, this is a real tricky one, and it takes a lot of tweaking and so on to make it work. But understanding which campaigns and which channels work best, and where are you getting the best response of, and where are you getting the best ROI from, Gen AI can help that analysis because it can start to fill in some of the gaps. Again, you have to kind of train it, but at the same time, it can help you start to track your marketing ROI, for example.
Definitely fantastic.
So those are 5 different cases, but there's always more popping up.
Any questions for Brian? We really only have 3 minutes left, so this time always flies by so quickly. I'm gonna just pause, see if anyone would like to ask Brian a question. Okay.
I'm either that complete or that irrelevant. I'm not sure which.
No, it's very, very complete. If you have one piece of advice, Brian, as people need to get back to their day jobs on how to get started or where to accelerate their own AI readiness, like where's the place to get started?
Well, I talked about the framework that I had in mind before, but I would say keeping that in mind, I think the one best thing that any organization or person individually can do is to just start playing around with it and trying it out. It shouldn't be AI is sitting in a team somewhere in an office. It needs to be the whole organization, and teams really need to experiment because you never know where the next great idea is going to come from or the next great application of Gen AI. Yes, you need the guardrails in place. Yes, you need the data. Yes, you need the governance and the business alignment. But it's really important to experiment with it. That kind of playground, what we often have done with our customers is set up a secure playground, and they let, I've got one customer, 300,000 employees. They've made this Gen AI playground available to all 300,000 employees, and and the idea is let's see what people will come up with. And I think that is just the best advice because you won't know until you try it. You really won't know. And those of us who work with Gen AI every day as part of our jobs, I swear there isn't a day that goes by where I'm not surprised by something.
Yeah, I love the feeling of that. Wow, I can't believe I just did this for the first time. Like that's such an incredible feeling. And
or somebody throws out an idea and you go, damn, I didn't think of that. Yes, that might work.
So, Brian, thank you so much for giving us your time and your sage advice around how to ready our organizations for AI. Ava, do we have a date for next month? No, we don't have a date, but it's usually around the 3rd Thursday of the month.
Yes.
And I already kind of said that my hope is that we'll have actually your company, NXP, talking about kind of strategic marketing transformation. So that should be super interesting as well. If you guys have feedback for how we can make this more interesting, more valuable, please feel free to join our LinkedIn group because there's a LinkedIn group that you could find in the chat.
And I just wanted to say, if you have any other questions or whatever from me, feel free, through David, Eva, or just you can find me on LinkedIn as well. Happy to follow up with anybody.
So it was quite nice to have such a small group today because we really got good discussion and I really like the feeling. Sitzel, good to see you. Do you have a question?
Yeah. Well, I was wondering which tool you were using for analyzing your market research for the Gen AI modeling.
You mean for the customer persona example?
Yeah.
So, well, it's not a, if you mean which large language model we were using,
Yeah.
we're using Claude from Anthropic. But there's a lot of different models out there. And when I talk about experimenting, one of the most important things is to experiment with different models. I use different models every day. I use the ones that we make. I use Anthropic's. I've used others as well. Different models have different strengths. It's very important to understand that in the AI space, not all models are created equal. And I don't mean that one is better than the other. It really depends. Some are cheaper, some are more expensive, some are faster, some are slower, some are a little bit better at, I don't know, coding. Others are maybe a little bit better at image generation. So it depends on what you want to do, what your application is, what your budget is, what, kind of latency you need. Like if you're running a call center, you can't have slow, a lot of latency. So there's a lot of different factors, and the different models all have different strengths and weaknesses. So rule number one, try several.
Okay, thank you.
Any last questions? Okay, with that then, I think we'll close this session, second session. Please be on the lookout for an email with an update around the date for our session in May. It's each month we get just a little bit better at organizing ourselves to have really good thinking and discussions and stimulating topics. If you have ideas for topics, or you want your company to be part of this session, please also reach out to me, and we'll see you next month. Okay?
Thank you.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.